A common debate in the privacy community is Android versus iOS, and as luck would have it, I recently switched from one to the other, so I thought I would try and offer some of my thoughts. Hey guys, Future Nate here, and I have a couple of updates since I recorded this video. The new oil is community supported, so if you want to keep videos like these coming, be sure to go support us if you're able to. If you can afford financial support, we have a merch store. We have recurring donation options like Open Collective and LibrePay, and we also accept a couple of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Monero. Actually, we accept a lot of cryptocurrencies via the whole Now Payments thing, so if you want to donate in a certain currency and we don't accept it, it's probably in Now Payments. Go ahead and check that out. We also have a number of affiliate links where if you pay for a service or a product, we get a small kickback. So there's really a lot of ways to support us while still getting something for yourself between the merch store and the affiliate links. I'm going to be clear up front, the goal of this video is not to convince you one way or another which one is better. The goal of this video is to share some of the differences that I've noticed for anybody who might be on the fence about which one is right for them. Now I know the inevitable question, which is going to be, well, why don't you flash a custom OS on your Android? You just said it was paid off, and it is carrier unlocked, so technically I can do that. I have a few reasons. Number one, like I said, I want to keep my devices stock so that I can review them. On the new oil, I cater to people who are new to this stuff, who may not necessarily have de-Googled phones, so I want to be able to give them accurate information. I want to know firsthand if an app is not working because it just sucks on Android, or if it's not working because it doesn't play well with the ROM I've chosen. So I'm going to let you know right now up front, I'm really not going to talk about custom OSs at all. Like, I'll mention them here and there, but I'm not going to talk about how to flash them. I'm not going to talk about which one's better. Not here. If that's what you're looking for, you're in the wrong video. Go ahead and quit now before you waste more of your time. To some of the more extremists out there, yes, in a perfect world, I would totally encourage people who want maximum privacy to go with a de-Googled operating system. Especially one of the top two that allows you to lock the bootloader again on a Pixel. That said, there are a lot of perfectly legitimate reasons that people may not want to go with an Android. For example, they might have been in my shoes where they just bought an iPhone that's perfectly good and they don't have the money to go out and buy a brand new smartphone. I've also heard that there's a lot of places in the world where Pixels are hard to come by, so that's a legitimate roadblock. And then, as I mentioned, my target audience is people who are new to this stuff or are not necessarily tech savvy. They may not be comfortable trying to flash a multi-$100 smartphone and risk bricking it. I know some of those OSs have really come a long way and they have certain installers that make that almost impossible to do, but that can still be really daunting and scary to a newcomer. So they might want to hold off on that until they've got a little bit more experience. These are some of the reasons that I cater to stock operating systems. And I just want to be upfront, I fully recognize that this is not a real fix. It's a mitigation. It's taking a privacy invasive system and making it a little bit less sucky. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but I believe that everyone is owed privacy no matter what system they're on. And if there is some sort of extenuating circumstance that's holding them to that system currently, I still think that they should be able to regain a little bit of privacy by changing some of the settings.
And speaking of Apple, definitely the less optimistic side of Apple. For those who remember, a researcher was able to prove that despite you saying opt out of analytics and things like the App Store, Apple actually still submits personal identifiers. So they don't actually remove or change anything regarding how they collect data within those applications. Now, again, the applications were Apple Music, the App Store, and other very select apps that had ads. So this didn't impact like health data or anything that was ultra sensitive, but it's still very concerning and not a good thing. So now there's a class action lawsuit after the recent revelation that disabling analytics still submits personal information to Apple. So now there was a class action over that, which honestly, well deserved. I have no complaints to that.
Google is paying Indiana $20 million to resolve a privacy suit. Well, I guess it is controversial because we all know Google can pay more. So once again, this goes back to the allegation that Google continues to track users even when they disable the location history toggle on their Android phones. 40 states got together to mount a huge lawsuit back in November to the tune of $391.5 million. But apparently that stalled out. So Indiana just struck out solo and filed a separate lawsuit, which has already been settled. Boy, that was fast. Man, the government really moves when they want to. This is actually twice as much money as Indiana would have received had they stuck with the group suit. So I guess that's a win for them. And as usual, Google did not admit any wrongdoing as part of the settlement.
Okay, so let's start with the obvious question that everybody's going to be asking. Which one is better? The truthful answer is I don't think either one of them is better. Back in the day, iOS was the clear winner. All the security experts said that iOS was more secure, Apple was a more private company.
You serious?
Privacy is pretty much the same between these two phones. Here's a fun little thing I've noticed in the privacy community. Everyone has an opinion on which big tech company is the worst. For me personally, I think it's Meta, with Amazon as a very close second. I think they are by far the most privacy invasive and least ethical companies. Some people feel like it's Discord. Other people think that Microsoft is the root of all evil. Other people say that it's Google or Apple. If I stand up here and list off all the reasons that an iPhone is better for privacy, there will be a lot of Apple haters who will have plenty of reasons that they actually suck. And vice versa, if I sit here and tell you all the reasons that Androids are better for privacy, there will be a lot of Google haters who point out all the reasons that Android sucks. And here's the kicker, they're both right. Let's look at Apple, for example. Most experts argue that Apple is a more private company because while they may collect as much data as Google does, they don't use it to sell targeted ads. All that said, Google is really not any better if we're going to be totally honest. Google is not a privacy-friendly company. I don't think anyone here is going to disagree with that statement. Google is an ad company. That's been common knowledge for years. Even the services that you pay for, like G Suite and YouTube Red, are a drop in the bucket compared to their ad revenue. In 2021, 80% of Google's overall revenue came from ads. That is impressive. In regards to the whole toggle thing, Android is also guilty of this. Google recently settled a nationwide lawsuit in the US after it was alleged that they were still tracking user locations even when they were told not to. If you disable the location toggles, they still tracked you just like Apple did. Really, in my opinion, the biggest thing that Google has going for them in a mobile device setting is that they are a much more open ecosystem. The basic Android operating system is actually open source. It's very developer friendly. You can sideload apps directly without using an app store at all. You can use alternative app stores like Neo and Crescent, and as I've mentioned, you can even install custom OSs like Graphene or Calyx. Again, I won't be really going into depth of either of those today, not the right video. Please find another video if that's what you're looking for. There are plenty of other resources out there for both of those operating systems, including their official websites, so go there. I'm simply pointing out that this is a possibility on Pixel phones, unlike iPhones. Okay, so with the objective stuff out of the way, what have I personally noticed in this transition? Well, let me start with the hardware. Obviously, this is going to vary based on the exact device you buy. I have an iPhone SE and a Pixel 6a. So this is going to vary if you get like the 14 Pro Max or, some Samsung garbage. Please don't buy Samsung. They are so bad. But generally speaking, here's what I noticed. Number one, I hated my iPhone, believe it or not. That thing literally fell off flat surfaces. I'm not making that up. My wife can confirm this. On the other hand, the Pixel is a little bit harder to reach one-handed. I work a blue-collar job, and it's pretty common that I have one hand full or I'm holding something and I still need to open my phone and type or swipe, and that's just kind of harder to do on the Pixel. It's a little bit bigger of a phone. It's not as one-hand friendly. I also have to note that the fingerprint scanner on the Pixel sucks. Seriously. On the iPhone, the fingerprint scanner basically only failed if my finger was sweaty or wet. On the Pixel, it just doesn't work half of the time. More often than not, I end up using my PIN to unlock the phone than the actual fingerprint scanner because it sucks. Finally, the speaker for regular calls, like not speakerphones, the kind you put to your ear, it really sucks. Like, I can barely hear it at all, even at full volume. It sounds really faint and distant, and my wife also has a Pixel 6a. I asked her if her phone is like that too, because I thought maybe mine was defective. Nope, it's just a really crappy speaker. So basically, you're either going to have to take speakerphone calls, or you're going to have to use a Bluetooth headset, because the regular calls suck. Regarding the actual operating system, iPhone objectively has one really cool feature that the Android does not, and that is text scanning via the camera. I noticed that when I was setting up my new phone for the first time and I had to go sign in, I was dreading having to type in this really long iCloud password. But it turns out I can just turn on the camera and scan it right on my computer. I open up my password manager, I choose to display the password, and then I scan it. It's a little bit finicky, it might take a minute, but it's certainly better than typing in a 25-character random password. As I said, the menu feels a little bit circular to me and honestly can be kind of overwhelming. Like, you can literally disable play services on the Android. That means if somebody isn't careful and doesn't know what they're doing, they could like stop getting notifications and stuff like that and not even know why. It's really weird that Android gives you that level of granular control. I guess that's kind of a plus, but it just feels a little bit dangerous to more inexperienced users who might be trying to dive in headfirst and try to de-Google their phone as much as they can without installing a custom OS. It's kind of dangerous. Although I guess the counter argument is they can always just turn it back on, so maybe there's that. Okay, now let's talk about the big one, which is the apps. Android, in my opinion, puts iOS to shame here. For one, there are very few apps that are iOS only. In fact, the only one that comes to mind off the top of my head is like Rivo, the two-factor authenticator. But even then, Android's Aegis is just as good as Rivo, so you're not losing anything there. I also really like the fact of knowing that I can extend the life of my phone. Androids generally get a lot less years of support than iPhones do. Most of them get like 3 years on average. The latest Pixels get 4 or 5 years, but that's still not much compared to iPhones, which some of the iPhones are still getting major security updates pushed back to them. Like, that's pretty impressive. So it is really nice to know that someday when my phone reaches end of life, I can go ahead and throw a custom OS on there and still have pretty good security and get updates long after they're done. I actually have a Lineage phone that's currently on Android 12. The actual phone, the stock Android, stopped updating on like Android 9. So again, I can really extend the lifespan of these phones. Although for the record, Lineage is not super great for security. I only did that as like an experiment to learn how to flash a phone in a low risk environment where it's like, hey, if I break this phone, who cares? It was super cheap and I don't use it. And now it's just more of an experimental little fun device. I don't actually use it as my full-time device or for anything sensitive. That said, it's worth noting that with how long iPhones get support for, there's a really good chance that I will run out of stock, custom OS, and firmware updates way before I stop getting iOS updates. We'll have to see, but given Apple's track record, that doesn't sound unrealistic. So when I was reviewing my little script notes here before I started recording, I realized that I kind of made it sound, at least to me, I made it sound like Apple was better. But I really honestly don't feel that way. I will say that Apple feels better. It feels cleaner. It's less buggy. It's more polished. But when it comes down to the actual functionality and the working of it, Android, I think, puts in a really powerful fight. Again, there's all the customization. There's the third-party app stores, the side loading. There's the fact that there are certain interoperabilities. For example, you can use YubiKeys. You can use a Pine Time. I actually have a non-NFC solo key right here that anytime I need to sign in on my Android, I can just pop this sucker into the USB-C charging port and go. And also that, for the record, USB-C. Like, I don't have to hunt down who's got a lightning cable. There are so many USB-C cables I can use for this thing. For the record, I am aware that with the latest iOS 16.3, I'm told that NFC YubiKeys should work, but I know that that's also a recent change that Apple has started opening up its NFC chip a lot more. So I think still Android is going to offer better NFC support. If you found this video helpful, please keep us going. Again, we have a merch store. You can go ahead and get a shirt, get a hoodie, get a coffee cup or a teacup, whatever you want to use it for. That's totally you, because unlike Apple, I don't tell you what to do with the things you buy. So in conclusion, remember, this video is not about which phone is better. I don't think that there is a better option necessarily. Phones are full of tracking and they're really hard to make private in a meaningful way. Even the best of phones are still susceptible to things like location history and carrier tracking. There's just some things you're not going to be able to get around. That said, for most of us, phones are pretty essential. If you are in a position where you don't have to have a phone with you most of the day, you're actually pretty lucky. Most people are not like that. When it comes to stock operating systems, I really did not find a clear winner. There are things about the iPhone that I do actually miss, and I'm probably going to make my iPhone my work device, just because, like I said, it handles my pseudo better, and I use that a lot for work. But even if I do that, I'm probably going to end up carrying two phones with me everywhere, because my Android has the things I like better. If you want something that's just going to work, that's going to look good and work right, no questions asked, and be really user intuitive, I think iPhone is probably your best bet.
You serious?
But if you're looking for something that's going to be flexible and give you the most possible freedom to reach your biggest privacy goals, I think it's Android hands down. Ultimately though, when it comes down to stock operating systems, it really depends on what you're looking for out of your device. I know a lot of people are going to disagree, but when it comes to stock, I don't think there's a right answer. I think there's only an answer that's right for you. Just to drill the point home one last time, I do think that everyone should consider a custom operating system as they advance in their privacy journey. Maybe you're not ready for that step right now, but be sure to revisit it at some point, maybe in like a year or 2 years, because hopefully you should be always growing.